Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Mike Carroll, and I'll be your instructor for this course, which is designed to give you an overview of cost accounting principles as they relate to the healthcare industry. I'll give you a fair warning. This course is going to be a lot more math intensive than some of our prior courses. For those of you who love math, this might be a bonus. For those of you who, like me, had to maybe struggle through a math course here or there, we'll get through it, I promise. We'll go through plenty of examples to give you an idea of how companies can identify and analyze their costs, ultimately improving their profitability. So let's go ahead and jump in. Now, there's 6 primary objectives that we'll look to cover during this course. First, we want to help you understand the fundamentals when it comes to cost accounting in healthcare. So we'll give you an overview of some common concepts and terminology, and then we'll give you some practical real-world examples of this in practice. Secondly, we want you to be able to recognize the financial challenges that are unique to healthcare organizations. Many of you who have taken cost accounting in the past probably know all about the challenges from the perspective of a manufacturing company. When you take cost accounting at different colleges, they tend to dive into manufacturing companies in particular, how those companies take in raw materials and convert them to work in process, ultimately giving you finished goods, and identifying some room for improvement along the way. So we'll build upon that knowledge, a lot of which will still be applicable for this course, but we'll also talk about some of the nuances in healthcare when it comes to cost accounting. Third, we'll evaluate a couple of different methods for allocating costs across different departments and service lines within a business. We'll also talk about some of the pros and cons that come along with each method. Fourth, we'll introduce activity-based costing, which is commonly called ABC, and we'll talk about how companies can use ABC to identify the true costs of their different activities, and this is all going to be based on actual usage and consumption. So we're going to be dealing with the real data in the business, not just predicting or estimating costs in the future. Fifth, we'll talk about some strategies that companies can implement to control their overhead, which will ultimately improve their bottom line or their profitability. And lastly, we'll give some examples of how accounting and finance professionals in the healthcare space can use cost accounting insights to help leadership drive strategic decisions and action. We live in a world where there's a ton of data out there, but what a lot of companies are still struggling to do is actually use that data to improve their performance. So we'll talk about how you can provide this data to management in a meaningful way that allows them to make better business decisions. As far as the structure of this course goes, we're going to divide it into 4 different sections. So in our first section, we'll provide you with a quick review about what cost accounting is at a super high level. I realize this is probably a review for a lot of you, so we're not going to spend too much time here, but we'll just refresh your memory on some common terms that'll come up throughout the rest of this course. We'll also dive into exactly where cost accounting fits within most healthcare organizations. In the second section, we'll talk about a few different strategies that organizations, and more specifically, the accounting and finance functions at those organizations, can use to allocate costs to different service lines and departments. We'll also do a walkthrough of a case study that shows exactly what this is going to look like in practice. In our third section, we'll introduce you to ABC costing, which we briefly touched on in the last slide. We'll also use a case study under this section to drive home some of the ways that ABC can be used to help identify the true costs of different services or procedures that a hospital or other healthcare organization might offer. And lastly, we'll give you some actionable strategies that can be used to reduce overhead and improve the profitability of a healthcare organization. So without further ado, let's get into it.